Yeah, maybe, he hissed, and they blinked his eyes to stop that sting in them and turn his face away from him. I hate him. Stop being jealous and think about your brother for a second. They signed, closed his eyes, and resting his head against the couch. I'm not jealous, he laughed. Nothing about it. After all, I'm the one who got last night, and I bet. They felt a lump in his throat and he didn't open his eyes. He was hurting the pain on they, and had just made fun of the night they spent together in bed. They swallowed painfully and decided to ignore him. They were trembling down, and they wanted no guilt on his shoulder when they went down. For the silence that came after that, they know he regretting what he said. They know that much. He would regret after doing or say something, but he didn't pay any mind of it. First, he focused on trying not to cry, and then he opened his eyes. When he composed and calm, they sat up on the couch and walked toward the table, drank the water. They wanted to go home and sleep. Sleep until everything was over, and he was just back to the being freely 21-year-old. They, I, he gripped his brim and wrist, and he suddenly shot out and grabbed it. They flinched for a second, and then couldn't take it anymore. Don't touch it. They yanked his hand away for his grip. The golden bracelet got stuck in his finger and broke. The small gold beads were shattered on the floor. They didn't care about that stupid bracelet. Right now, he merely rubbed the wrist and glared at him. Jungkook scared, and that guilt were on his face. His face was shattered out with the pain, but they averted his eyes and rubbed his wrist. They thanked Almighty that he couldn't finish the sentence, whatever he was going to say. But then they both heard the small groan of Jungkook and peeked up. They walked toward the bed and pressed the small button, alerting the nurse that Jungkook was awake. Jungkook was on his feet too, rushing toward his brother and adjusted a pillow under his head, and his eyes were open. What? Jungkook cracked out, staring at Jungkook in confusion. His face were, and his lips trembled. Do you need water? He asked gently, and he gave him a confused look, but nodded. Nevertheless, he didn't need water because his throat was dry. I can't talk, he whispered, with a hint of panic in his eyes. His thoughts were too raw, and his vocal cords were not working properly. He was freaking out about the whole situation. Jungkook, even so gentle, would claded his head in his hand and guide him to drink water. He drank 2 or 3 gulps before lying back to the pillow. His thought couldn't even take a water. He was anxious. What happened? He barely whispered out, his eyes moving around the room until they landed on Tae. He gave him a small smile but didn't go further. They didn't want to ask about the hell, but was afraid that Jungkook might just push. He talked to him, and they were still a little sensitive about what he said and didn't want to get any attention of himself. Relax, we were in an accident, but you're alright. Rest, Jungkook. And please, don't speak. Your vocal cords are damaged, so you only make it worse. He explained and Jungkook nodded, not wanting to argue or remember anything about the accident. Just then the doctor came. Hello, how are you, Mr. Sean? He smiled, checking Jungkook's fever and then blood pressure with the machine. He fumbled and heart monitor and waited. Fine, he breathed. He can't speak, doctor. Jungkook informed and doctor nodded, knowing the injury and a light brown liquid in Jungkook's arm. Don't worry, you're fine, and rest of a while. Jungkook was watching him, but then his eyes were heavy and dropped shut. He turned to Jungkook then. He should be up for 3 or 4 hours. Now you can inform the police about it. He suggested and Jungkook nodded and thanked the doctor, and all the while they stood in the corner with his arms crossed over his chest. The guilt were turned to Jungkook in full force, and he couldn't, absolutely not reason not to blame himself. And it had become so. He had said something so horrible to Thee. No wonder they wasn't talking to him. How could he say something like that? How can it blame all his prestation? He was frustrated because he wasn't telling the whole truth that Jungkook had talked about. He wanted to string the truth out, but he used harsh word instead, and now he was regretting it. It was not forgivable in his dictionary, but he must ask for it. Do you wanna go home? He clapped and looked at Tae. They looked up at his feet, and he was bouncing on, and stared blankly at him. They had no emotion on his face, as he shook his head side to side. I will be outside. He mumbled and walked toward the door. Jungkook foamed at him, and the situation were finally, and his eyes were pointed and shook his head, even when he wasn't looking. They thought he was asking that because he didn't want him here around Jungkook. No, he was just trying to start a conversation. No, he grabbed the waist and he flinched for his touch once again. The young eyes were pointed as his one hand would currently grab the doorknob while the other was in his grip. They looked at his hand offensively, but he didn't do anything to pull back. I didn't mean it like that, Precious. I just want to know if you are tired. Although it was nice to know that he cared right now, but they only focused on that come out of his mouth. Precious. They had come to love the term he used him for now, but they couldn't hate it anymore. Precious is something unique, and you find that something precious because you like it, you adore it, and it's worth loving. That's why it is precious. Precious isn't something you pushed away. They yanked his fist off his hand and lightly. They didn't want to fight or even argue with him. They just wanted to ignore him and stop talking, because whatever left his mouth only hurt they. He might not have something straightforward, but indirectly it pointed at the character, just like magazine had been saying, just like Sophia had laughed out about. I'm not tired. I'm fine. He shrugged, but they didn't want to think that he being stupid or seeing attention for him. So he acted normal. The door opened. Think of the devil, and they rolled his eyes as Sophia entered and looked around like a caged animal. Oh, Jungkook, she cried out, grabbing the arm. How is he? Do you need something? Come, we must go and fetch some coffee. He grabbed his hand unashamedly, and Taehyung's cheeks were burned with anger. He could clench his fist as his eyes remained fixed on his hand. You must be tired. Come on. He tugged his hand and didn't move. They looked up at his face. He was staring at him. Oh no, you want my permission. Oh my goodness. What if your cuts get infected, Jungkook? She traced a finger off his face, feeling that light on his cheeks. They practically saw red at the time and almost grabbed the witch by her hair and dragged her. I'm fine, Sophia. Don't be silly. We should go and see doctor. At least you need some rest. While Jungkook sleep, we should go and eat something. What did she actually want? Doctor, rest, or something to eat? They gritted his teeth and almost screamed at him. Leave my husband alone, you witch, and stop touching him.